There are over 10 million online searches each month for information regarding domestic violence in just the US and Canada. Anyone, regardless of gender, sexuality, race, or religion, can experience abuse. Domestic abuse isn't always physical violence. It can be emotional, verbal, even financial. It can feel isolating and hopeless. For victims, it often takes several attempts to escape an abusive partner. There are many reasons victims are often afraid to reach out for help, including embarrassment or denial, or fear of losing their children or pets. But if you're experiencing abuse, you're not alone. It's not your fault. Help is here for you. domesticshelters.org is the leading domestic violence online resource where abuse victims and survivors can find everything they need to take steps towards safety, all in one place. With domesticshelters.org's searchable database of domestic violence programs and shelters in the US and Canada, anyone can find a nearby trained advocate who cares, along with support and resources. Victims of abuse may not be ready to connect with an advocate yet, but with domesticshelters.org's comprehensive library of relevant and high-quality content, it's simple to find information that can help change lives for the better. Domestic violence professionals and advocates rely on domesticshelters.org for ways to better support their local communities through free online expert-led training, award and grant programs, donation tools, and other powerful resources. The profound impact of domestic violence hurts everyone. Victims lose hope. Children suffer lifelong trauma. Communities are permanently damaged. That's why millions of people come to domesticshelters.org to get the answers and help that they need. And why 8 out of 10 domesticshelters.org visitors share their newfound knowledge with others, exponentially increasing public awareness of abuse. Your support helps connect those millions of victims and survivors of domestic violence with the resources they need to identify, escape, and heal from abuse. If you aren't sure where to turn, we're here to help you feel safe again, wherever you are on your journey. Please visit us at domesticshelters.org.
Hi, everyone. Welcome, and thank you so much for being here today. My name is Hannah Craig. I'm the Director of Content with domesticshelters.org. I am here on behalf of our National Director, Ashley Rumschlag, who's off today. And with me in our back end is Rachel Myers, our Senior Digital Services Specialist. We are here today for reimagining self care, connection, co regulation, and the courage to receive. Happy National Self Care Day. That is what today is all about. And we really wanted to be able to provide something on a really important day, not just for you to be able to share with those that you work with, but also for yourself as somebody who works in a really high stress, very emotional field. So we're really, really glad that you're here today. We are, of course, domesticshelters.org. Hopefully, you're at least a little bit familiar with us at this point. And we are a program of Alliance for Hope International, along with our other programs, the Family Justice Center Alliance, where we help communities create family justice centers and then help those family justice centers run as best as they can. The Training Institute for Strangulation Prevention, Camp Hope America, our Voices Advocacy Program, and the Justice Project. And then today, our webinar is actually sponsored and brought to you by Verizon Skill Forward, which is one of Domestic Shelters programs. It is a wonderful upskilling initiative that has a ton of asynchronous learning for people to be able to upskill and further their careers and job skills, all for free. Rachel is going to put the link to sign up, and you can share that with your clients. You can use it yourself. We invite everyone, and it is all free for you through a grant from Verizon. Live closed captions are available today from this webinar. You've got that little box on the bottom of your screen, usually on Zoom. You've got your Zoom bar, and you can just click that closed caption buttons to show our captions today. And then just as a reminder, we are in a Zoom webinar today, so all attendees are in listen-only mode, but we encourage you to ask any questions that you would like using the Q&A feature. That really helps us be able to get those right to our host and presenter today. So if you have any questions, please use Q&A, but please connect with everyone else and share your thoughts, impressions, anything that you would like in our chat. I see everybody's introducing themselves right now, and it's so awesome to see so many of you here today with us from all over the place. And then to answer the question that I already saw asked at least once, we were laughing before this because this is the most popular question in any webinar. Within 1 week, you will have emailed to you your certificate of attendance, a transcript of today's webinar, a video recording of today's webinar, and a link to the YouTube version of it as well, and any additional resources. So within 1 week, those will be emailed to you. So, joining us today to present on this topic is Carrie-Ann Gwynn. She is our very own Verizon Skill Forward project coordinator, but she also is extremely passionate about holistic wellness. When this topic came up as an idea to run, like we barely even had to talk about it. We were like, Carrie-Ann is absolutely the person for this. Not only is she so knowledgeable, but she is so passionate and just really has provided us with, I think, some of the best information I've ever seen about how we can just take care of ourselves better so that we can help take care of others. So, Carrie-Ann, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. What a kind intro, Hannah. That was delightful. Okay, so we're going to start off by playing a game. I asked ChatGPT to give us a list of the top 10 most cliche self-care recommendations. So we're going to take a couple moments. I want you to type as many as you can into the chat and let's see how many of them we can get. Most cliche self-care recommendations in honor of National Self-Care Day. Right, I have to scroll down on my chat. Yoga, bubble bath, baking, sleeping, walking, yoga, hiking, taking a shower. Yeah, time with friends, exercise, breathing, meditating. Wow, y'all know your self-care. I am so impressed. Nature, relax, sleeping, ice cream. Yes, ice cream was not on the list, but it absolutely should be. Cooking, hiking, counseling. Aretha Franklin. Yes, you are my people. I love that. Sound healing, beautiful. So there are tons of ways to approach self-care, but do you notice a theme here? All of these are solo activities, almost all of them that you've said in the chat. Some people said time with grandkids, all of that. But the majority of the self-care recommendations that we are given are either solo activities or they are implied to be solo activities. So you're probably not going to take a bubble bath with a friend, or you're going to drink tea by yourself, or you're going to sit in nature by yourself. And this is how our world also thinks about self-care, is that it's a luxury, that it's about solitude, it's about distancing yourself from others, it's about retreating. And maybe you need that from time to time. I do too. But if you are one of the 52 million Americans experiencing loneliness on a daily basis, antisocial activities are the last thing that you need. You may find that you don't need more alone time. Even more alone time can feel unnerving. Too much of it can be the opposite of self-care. It can lead to loneliness and even despair. And too much alone time can lead to your brain saying, hey, it's me. Would you rather relive every terrible thing that's ever happened to you or relive every awkward social interaction you've ever had? Does anybody else relate to that? No, thank you. We do not want this. And don't get me wrong, I've got nothing against face masks or bubble baths, but for the purposes of this webinar, we're going to skip those. Other than stats during 2020, our country's rates of depression, anxiety, and loneliness are higher than they have ever been. Remember that 52 million lonely souls I referred to? That accounts for 20% of adults in the US. 20% of our population reports not just occasional loneliness, daily loneliness. I want you to let that sink in. Our Paleolithic ancestors did not live the way that we do. They were not sequestered to their individual caves, staring at rocks. They were together. They were hunting. They were cooking. They were taking care of each other. They were raising each other's kids. They were telling stories around a fire at night. They sang, they danced, they shared wisdom, they traveled together. They each used their gifts and strengths to care for the community as a whole. That sounds really familiar. Camp Hope America is honestly what immediately came to mind for me. This photo is from the Camp Hope America Chattanooga site. Michelle Howard was kind enough to send this to me, even though she's preparing for camp and has a bazillion things going on. But it's no wonder that the camp bond is so deep and long lasting. So when you think about our ancestors, they utilized connection, community, and cooperation as a way of life. It was an absolute necessity. Solitude was literally a threat to their very existence. And I hope that your brain is creating some pictures for you of what that looks like. But now we're living as though those tenets that kept our ancestors alive are afterthoughts. They're add-ons. They're a luxury. We treat them like they're optional. But for a full, abundant, healthy life, they're not optional. Even in our modern world, they are essential. And yes, you can live with grocery delivery and social media, faux connections, and more, but I'm not talking about surviving, I'm talking about thriving. I'm talking about abundant life and a life that is brimming with goodness. Hear me out. This is what our bodies, our brains, and our spirits are wired for. Our DNA is estimated to only have changed 0.1% between our ancestors and now. It's not even a whole percent. We are 99.9% the same as our ancestors that lived 10 to 20,000 years ago. In other words, we are cavemen living in a modern world. And I don't know about you, but my brain immediately goes to Geico commercials. We are hunters and gatherers. We are made for life together, not solo living and staring at screens all day. So it is 0% surprising that loneliness and depression are rampant. And hey, I know you can't live in a cave, okay? Look around. This is the world that we live in. How do we reconcile the innate wisdom of our bodies and our brains with our modern world? And what in the world can we do about this? How can we bring ourselves back to more connection and togetherness? Because our loneliness epidemic is serious, and so many of us are pretending like it's not. I can't help but think of Monty Python and the Holy Grail. King Arthur and the Black Knight are in a duel. And here's how it goes. Sword, sword, hiya, slice, slice, slice. The Black Knight loses his arm. And King Arthur thinks it's over because it should be. But the Black Knight says, "'Tis but a scratch." They keep fighting. Arm number 2 bites the dust. And King Arthur says, "Victory is mine." But the now armless Black Knight comes after him again. And King Arthur says, "Look, you've got no arms left." To which the Black Knight replies, "Yes, I have." And King Arthur says, "Look." The Black Knight's arms are literally laying on the ground. And then Black Knight responds casually saying, "It's just a flesh wound." And not to get too graphic with this slide, but there is spurting. This is not a flesh wound. This is us. We are the Black Knight. We're drinking tea by candlelight, thinking that that's going to solve our problem. This cannot be our primary source of self-care. We're using self-care band-aids, and it's not just a flesh wound. The wounds of loneliness are gaping. We need more than band-aids and platitudes. And I wonder if hearing this right now feels heavy for you, because sometimes shining a light on dysfunction can often bring up a tidal wave of grief. We want to be the Black Knight. We want to pretend that this is not real, that it's not a big deal, that we'll be fine. But then we start to think about how off course we are, and we might ask questions like, gosh, how have we gotten so far off track? Or what will this world be like for my kids? They're big questions, big uncertainty, big grief. And one of the ways that we can care for ourselves is to see these things, to name them, and to sit with them. If you want to type in what's coming up for you emotionally in the chat, just in one word, whether it's anxiety, anger, grief, worry, whatever, feel free to type that in. Just that's our practice of naming it. anxiety, validation. Yes, we're like, oh my gosh, the world didn't used to be this way. This is why it's so hard. This is not the way it's supposed to be. Tiredness, loneliness, realization, exhaustion, isolation, mourning. Woo, baby. Yes. So I want to guide you into a practice called a containment hug. Take your right hand. You're going to put it in your left armpit. Hopefully it's not too sweaty under there. You're going to take your left hand and place it on your right shoulder. I personally like to put it on my skin. It gives a little bit of traction and helps me stick a little bit more. This is a containment hug. Your right hand is in your left armpit. It's protecting your heart space. It's offering this pressure of, this is the boundary of my body. I can't solve all the problems of the world, but I can be right here. I can hold myself. I can say, grief, I see you. This is not the way that it is supposed to be. Body, help me know what to do with this feeling. Help me move this through. You can come back to this containment hug anytime. You could hold this containment hug the entire webinar. It would probably benefit you greatly. This is called resourcing your nervous system. So when we're thinking about self-care, we need to ask ourselves some really important questions. Here they are. What truly rejuvenates me? What sparks my creativity? What gives me more energy? What ignites joy in my heart? What excites me? What makes me want to be a better person? And I want to say a little bit more about this because we live in a culture where socially acceptable addictions are running rampant. And I don't say this as an observer of other people's dysfunction. I say this as a person who greatly struggles with this myself, that it is so much easier to binge watch a show on Netflix or fall in a scroll hole on social media, or for me, Facebook Marketplace is a real problem, and just scroll, 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 and look, consume, consume, consume. Never have I ever walked away from those activities feeling actually rejuvenated. I numbed out, I escaped some unpleasant realities. But yes, doom scrolling is a real thing. This is a problem. It is never going to lead to something good for you. And yet we have thought, oh, this is self-care. I just need what do they call it? A day to rot. The younger generation, like, you do not need a day to rot. You need a day to care for yourself. And we can also look at it this way. What if you replace the what with who? Because we're talking about connection, right? Like, if we need to be living as cave people in connection, in community, maybe it's not all about activities that we do for self-care. Chances are, if we do not pause and think about these prompts right now, we never will. So if you have a piece of paper, pull that out. If you need to take a note on your phone, title it self-care, and we are going to do some writing. It doesn't need to be complete sentences. You can write down some people that rejuvenate you, ignite joy in your heart. You can also write down some activities. You can write bullet points or keywords. And I do want to say this, if you have not been practicing self-care in a very long time, or let's say you've been doing the bubble baths and it's just not working for you, I want you to think back to what you loved as a child, because you probably still love those same things and they probably bring you rejuvenation and joy and peace in the same way now. So we're going to pause for a moment, write down on your phone in a note or on a piece of paper what or who rejuvenates you. Feel free to share those things in the chat now that you've had a moment. Going to the beach with my boyfriend and our friends, music concerts, my son, me too, as a boy mom. Spending time with my kids, fur babies, yes, church, faith, Scrabble. I love it. You guys are all on the right track. Amazing. Kayaking, having a beautiful home. Self-care for me, and I have to tell myself this, is I create peace by having a clean and calm home. Swimming, nature, gospel music. Woo! Love it. Awesome. When we are stressed out and burnt out, it can be very difficult to remember or access these practices of rest and rejuvenation. So once the webinar is over, I want to challenge you to write these things down in sentences like exploring my city brings me rest, or I love swimming, or coffee with my son warms my heart, and then post them somewhere that you will see them regularly. Eventually, you're going to find these things easier to access in your brain without the list because you've read the list multiple times. And we have to remind ourselves of that. I'll add, if you are in a place of depression or shutdown and you can't even fathom the thought of going out of your way to make these kinds of tasks happen, I'm going to share with you an affirmation that I wrote down for myself when I was in a similar season. Instead of saying, washing my face makes me feel so good, I wrote down, I've never regretted washing my face. And the additional part to that is, I have regretted going to sleep with mascara on and waking up all in the middle of the night. But it might be something like that. It might be something that's really low-hanging fruit. Self-care comes in a lot of shapes and sizes. As you've seen in the chat, everybody experiences this in a different way. Some people want togetherness, some people want solitude, some people want nature, some people want to be inside. And like I said, we have a lot of solitude these days, but it's often not restorative. So here's another way to look at self-care. There is a guy named Alan Lux. He was the former executive director of Big Brothers Big Sisters in New York City. He was also one of the leading experts on volunteerism. Throughout his career, he received many awards for his volunteer work and leadership in the nonprofit sector. Most notable, though, is that he developed the term helper's high. So the primary chemical released when we help others is dopamine, which is associated with our brain's reward system. And there's no surprise there, right? This feel-good chemical is released when we give to others. Rachel, will you go back one slide? We're gonna hang out right here on the helper's high for a little bit because we have all these chemical processes going on in our bodies when we participate in helping others. So we've got dopamine happening, the reward system, this feel-good chemical is released when we give to others. Not only that, but serotonin and oxytocin are also released when we help others. Oxytocin, we know it, we love it, it's the love hormone. Serotonin is our happy hormone, and all of these brain chemicals have amazing physiological impacts. Less stress, pain blocking, lowers heart rate, and lowers blood pressure. Like, what? That is amazing. Alan conducted a study of over 3,000 people, some volunteering and some not, and the study showed that volunteering and helping is highly beneficial for both the mind and the body, which is not hard to believe when we see all of that. Okay, I wonder if you're worried that I'm going to tell you to go volunteer. You're probably thinking, I already do enough. You can breathe a sigh of relief because I'm not going to tell you that. You may find yourself in a season right now where you feel like you have nothing to give. I know I've been in seasons like that too, even recently. You might be at the end of your rope. You feel like there's nothing left in the tank. And you feel like, how could I even pour from an empty cup? And you really might wish that you could show up for other people in this season, but you can't. And that's okay. I want to invite you to place a hand on your chest for a moment and repeat after me. It's okay to be where I am. It's okay to be where you are. There's no judgment. There's no shame. Don't should all over yourself that you should be able to handle it. You should be able to show up for people better. It doesn't help. It only increases our cortisol, and we do not need that. So hand on the chest, it's okay to be where I am. And what if I told you that you have something really valuable to give, even when you're at the end of your rope and your tank is empty? And the way that you give is by getting. Alan Lux's work taught us that yes, you can get a helper's high from volunteering, but we also know that compassion fatigue is a real thing. And you might be thinking, gosh, this is depressing stuff, Carrie Ann. It feels like it sometimes. But you have the ability to give lowered pain and lowered stress to those around you. And the way that you do that is by asking for help and then allowing people to show up for you. Plot twist. You don't have to go volunteer all your time in order to care for yourself and be in a better space. So I want you to think about a time when you've helped a friend, a family member, or even a stranger. It could be something as small as giving a snack to someone on the side of the road that looks hungry. It could be as small as giving a compliment to a stranger in the grocery store, or maybe a friend asked you to make them dinner because they're really going through it, or there was a meal train for someone who had a new baby, and you did that. You signed up. You're like, yes, I want to show up for this person. How did that act of service make you feel? And feel free to write it in the chat. So you're reflecting, when have you showed up to help someone else, and what did it do for you? How did you feel? Connected. We do feel connected to the people we get to show up for. Paying it forward because you've been helped, fulfilled, purposeful, kind of euphoric. Yes, that's the helper's high. Grateful to be in a position of service. Purposeful gratitude. Needed, giving back, being a blessing is a blessing. Absolutely. Empowered. It makes you feel special when someone asks you for help. Yes, all of that. I like the part that it's okay to say no. Yeah, it is okay to say no. Oh, did a friend's laundry while she was down after surgery. What a gift. You want to show up for people, and you just proved that because you're sharing all these experiences when you helped others and you felt great. Well, guess what? People want to show up for you. There are people that love you. The way that we ask for help is directly correlated to how we respond when someone else asks for help. So that sounded confusing. Let me rephrase that. This comes back to self-awareness. If you say yes when you should have said no, you are going to assume that other people are saying the same thing. Okay, for this next section, the lovely Hannah Craig is going to help me out. Hannah, are you with me?
I am with you.
Thank you. We're going to do a little role play and we're going to make it cheesy, okay? So everybody buckle up. Okay, hey Hannah, I'm moving this weekend and I am so stressed out about it. Are you available to help me for a couple hours on Saturday?
Oh my gosh, of course. Saturday is totally fine. I can actually help you for the whole day if you'd like me to.
Are you serious? That would be amazing. Thank you so much. Okay, behind the scenes, Hannah's internal dialogue.
Oh my God, why did I do that? My back has been killing me, but I don't want to let Carrie Ann down, and I owe her so much. I owe her such big favors.
Okay, in this scenario, Hannah did not practice self awareness. She overextended. In order to practice self awareness, she would need to pause and actually check in with herself. And this is what that might look like. I asked for help, and then
My back has actually been really, really bothering me lately, and I know moving a bunch of heavy stuff would just make it worse. Is there another way that I could help? Like, maybe I could bring you lunch on Saturday instead.
oh gosh, Hannah, I'm so sorry about your back. Thank you for telling me that. Lunch would be awesome. I always need to eat. Thank you so much for telling me. I really appreciate it. Thanks, Hannah. So, behind the scenes, Hannah has to ask herself what is within her capacity or her window of tolerance, as we like to call it in the nervous system regulation world. She would need to sift through some internal objections. She's having this concern about her body and her back. She doesn't want to let me down. That is something that is so sadly common. We worry about what other people will think about our decision. So if you say yes when you wish that you were saying no, you are going to assume that other people are doing the same thing and you will never feel comfortable asking for help. And I'm sorry to be so blunt, but it's because of you not being honest and not being trustworthy. To have a trustworthy yes and a trustworthy no, your self awareness has got to increase so that you can be aligned with your decisions. And you have to be willing to let people down. It will happen. But we also have this lifelong relationship with our bodies, our minds, our spirits. And if we betray ourselves over and over and over again for the sake of others, it's going to become a problem. And not to be too morbid, but I am a cancer survivor. And a while back, I went to a cancer clinic in Mexico that was holistic based cancer treatment. And I met tons of amazing people there. The one thing that was the most common of all these people was, I've put other people before myself way too much. I'm always caretaking. I'm always showing up for other people. And this stopped me in my tracks. I do not want you to be stopped in your tracks by something that can be prevented by you taking care of yourself. I feel a little bit emotional talking about that. That's how passionate I feel about it. Because this is the beginning of how we begin to trust others, is that we build awareness in and trust of ourselves first. So you might be sitting here thinking, I literally don't even know how to do that. So how do I even check in with myself in the first place? I'm going to talk about polyvagal theory. If you were in our webinar a while back called When Talk Therapy Isn't Enough, you heard about this theory. But for those of you for whom this is new, I want you to really understand this as the foundation of our capacity. It doesn't have to do with you being weak. It doesn't have to do with anything other than sometimes your nervous system just cannot handle anything else. So polyvagal theory was developed by Dr. Stephen Porges. It explains how our nervous system responds to danger and threats, and also how our nervous systems respond to safety, because our brains are constantly looking for safety via this process called neuroception. At a foundational level, poly means many, vagal means referring to the vagus nerve. This is also known as cranial nerve 10. It begins in the brain stem and then travels down into the chest cavity and abdomen, and it's largely involved in the function of the heart, lungs, spleen, GI tract, liver, and kidneys. When it's working well, it is the MVP of a healthy, high-functioning body, and when it's not functioning well, we feel it big time. When we learn to cultivate awareness, we will be able to identify which state of the nervous system we are in. There are three. I will show them on the next slide. This is called the polyvagal ladder. There are three main states of the nervous system. So in a perfect world, our baseline is up at the top of the ladder, ventral vagal presence. And the message of the nervous system here is, I feel safe, I can handle what comes to me, you're connected to other people. That story that feels true is, I've got this, I can handle whatever comes my way, I have what it takes. And then we go back down the ladder a little bit into sympathetic activation. And before we sip on the haterade towards sympathetic activation, or fight or flight mode, as it's often called, or flee, I want to say this. This is a protective state. Our caveman ancestors, they experienced this state when they were running from a saber-toothed tiger or whatever they were happening to run from. And it's protective. You need it. The message of the nervous system here, the story that feels true, is I have to do something about this now or else. And it's very urgency based. It's stressful. We feel unsafe in our own bodies. At the bottom of the ladder, we have dorsal vagal shutdown. And I love this person at the bottom of the ladder is curled up in the fetal position, because that is what the shutdown wants us to do, because that is a protective state as well. And we feel overwhelmed, shut down. The story that feels true to the nervous system is, I cannot handle this. I do not have what it takes. And we want you to learn how to recognize which of these states you are in, because then you will know what to do about it. I'll also add, between sympathetic and dorsal vagal, there is a freeze and fawn mode. And that freeze and fawn mode is, the message is, I need to do something about this or else, but I can't. And I bet that we've all been in that space when you're feeling the sympathetic activation, your heart's racing, your muscles are pumping blood, you're ready to run, but you are paralyzed at the same time. That is the state that lives between sympathetic and dorsal vagal. It's one of the worst ones because it's hard to get out of. So those are the states of the nervous system. And when we get in touch with ourselves and our awareness and grow our awareness, it's twofold. First, we have a better ability to have a truthful yes or no when someone else asks us for help. But just as importantly, we begin to gain awareness around our own needs. And when we have awareness of our own needs, we can begin to ask others for help. I want to map out the nervous system a little bit. So on the next slide, there's this cute picture of a map. We've got our various states: ventral vagal presence, sympathetic activation, freeze, and dorsal vagal shutdown. Things you will notice if you are in ventral vagal presence: you might make eye contact more readily. You don't feel awkward in your face. I don't know about you, but sometimes when I'm anxious, I'm kind of like, oh my gosh, what's my face doing? And I'm just feel like I'm watching myself from outside. In ventral vagal presence, you're with other people, you're connected, you're comfortable, you're free to be seen and loved exactly as you are. You make more eye contact. You might touch a person that you really care about without overthinking it. The mind is calm in this state. This is where we want to be able to come back to regularly. Then we have sympathetic activation, that fight or flight mode. We know this. We know this. Heart racing, blood pumping. I'm going to be really vulnerable with you right now. When I am in this state, my body wants to punch things. And I am not a violent person, but there is a primal instinct in me that my fight alarm is going off hard. And when I'm in this state, and maybe when you're in this state too, you have to move it out of your body. You cannot breathe your way out of this. You cannot think your way out of this. For me, it looks like doing push-ups on the kitchen counter, or squats, or going on a walk, or channeling Billy Blanks from the old Tybo days, and just like boom, 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 because I need to get that out of my body. And that is a safe way to do that. I am not going to be hurting other people, but I need to, yes, exert those negative feelings. They have to come out. And then we have freeze. We've been there. We're like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what to do. I'm so stressed out, but where do I start? And I can't do anything. So I'm going to look calm because I'm laying on the couch, but I'm actually ruminating like crazy. That's our freeze state. And then dorsal vagal shutdown. Building awareness around this is so beautiful. I was in a yoga class recently, and we were doing a chest opener where we were supposed to be, wide open, arms out. And I was in a season of life where everything in me wanted to protect myself. I did not feel safe in my body. And everyone else is doing the chest opener. And I went into the fetal position on the floor because my body said, I don't need to open, I need to close and protect. And that is dorsal vagal shutdown. Low energy, hard to get out of bed, don't want to do anything, can't think through challenging problems. It's all just, I cannot do this. That's dorsal vagal shutdown. When we begin to recognize what these states feel like in our own bodies, then we can do something about it. And I'm going to give you like rapid fire of what to do in these different states. Sympathetic activation: when you're in that fight or flight mode, you need to move your body, and you need to move your body as fast as you can. That is going to help your body to offload the cortisol and often adrenaline that is pumping through your body. The only way to do it is through physicality. Dorsal vagal shutdown, light dancing. That's what I'm going to say. Okay. Really gentle movement. You can make it as small as wiggling your fingers. You can make it as small as moving your hands back and forth against each other. And right now, when I'm doing this, and maybe you're doing it too, I want to invite you to do that. Notice what it feels like, but also notice what it sounds like. We're tuning back into what is going on in this exact moment instead of letting our brains go crazy, replaying trauma and all of that. We need to be gentle and slow. But before you do that, you might need to lay on the couch. You might need to bring your knees in towards your chest. You might need to give yourself a squeeze. You might need to speak to yourself as though you are a child still. What did child you need when you were feeling shut down and didn't get the care that you needed? I led one of our skill forward learners through what turned out to be a really beautiful spontaneous practice in this. We both laid on our couches. We were on Zoom and went through some affirmations that were relevant to the situation. And as she's holding herself and I'm holding myself, I just had her repeat out loud, I couldn't slow down then, but I can slow down now. I'm allowed to rest. I'm allowed to rest. I'm allowed to rest. Because so many of us, we were not allowed to rest. We were not given space for our feelings. And shutdown is protective and it's not going to stay forever. When we can offer care to that part of ourselves, then that part of ourselves feels safe to just soften a little bit. Mindfulness practice is so important to be present in the moment. I am totally with you. So when we get in touch with ourselves and our awareness, we map out our nervous systems. We can say no when we need to say no, and we can say yes when we need to say yes. And it is not lost on me how hard this can be, okay? So not only the saying no, that's really hard, but asking for help is also really hard, especially if you've experienced intimate partner violence or repeated broken trust in other ways. So let's not go buck wild with this, okay? Don't try to go building trust with and asking for help from someone who has a terrible track record. That is only going to set you up for failure. And let's not ask for something huge. Start small. Find a friend or even just a friendly acquaintance that is safe enough and ask for something small. And when you're trying to figure out what safe enough looks like or what that even is, look at these 3 things. Also, Liz, this is my friend Liz in this photo, and I know that she's on this call. So this was one of the most beautiful moments. Who do we trust? We find people who are consistent. We find people who are kind. We find people who are non-reactive. That is absolutely huge. The non-reactivity is necessary because it comes back to mirroring and co-regulating. If I'm asking for help from someone who is calm and regulated, I'm able to calmly ask for the support that I need. And these are 3 of the most baseline things that you can look for. And then you may ask a phrase like this: hey, I'm needing some help with XYZ. Are you available? And you might add, I want to give you some time to think about it. Please only say yes if you have the capacity. And if you don't have the capacity right now, listen to this. I trust that you will say no. When we phrase and ask this way, it lets the other person know that they are on the hook for their answer in a loving way. It's not like, you better not say yes if you don't want to. It's, I trust that you will say no if you need to. Do you notice how different that is? You've been really clear with them, and they have an automatic way out. And if they choose not to take it, that is on them. It is not on you. And asking in this way, it also frees you up from having to wonder. So you've already said, I'm going to trust your yes, and I'm going to trust your no. And then you're going to need to remind yourself of this, because this is a new skill that we're building, right? They could have said no, but they chose to say yes. I choose to trust their yes. I choose to trust their yes. And the same goes for when we respond to someone else asking us for help. So I want you to try this on. Someone asks you for help. Your initial reaction is like the guilt of, oh, I should because I owe them. And like, I know they're really stressed out and they're going to be mad at me if I don't help. But you also know that you're kind of struggling right now to get through the day to day. And instead of overcommitting and saying, yeah, I'll be there for the whole day to help you, try this out. Can I let you know in a couple hours? And hopefully they'll say yes. If they don't, that's an indication of the nature of the friendship. You don't need to dump a bunch of like, oh, well, I need to think about it because blah, 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 blah. Don't do that. All you say is, can I let you know in a couple hours, or can I let you know in a little while? Because if you do all the dumping of, I need to talk about, oh, maybe I can get the coverage for the kids, or like, oh, my back's hurting, but it'll probably be okay, whatever. They're going to rescind their offer. And we don't want them to do that. We don't want them to feel bad for asking, because remember, we need a world that invites each other in more. We are trying to get back to helping each other, showing up for one another. And it starts with you. Okay, let's get back to the helper's high. By refusing to ask for help, You are gatekeeping natural painkillers, stress reduction, and happy hormones. What? Okay, I'm gonna say that again. By refusing to ask for help, you are actually robbing people of the natural painkillers, the stress reducers, the happy hormones, the joy, the feeling of being needed, the empowerment, all of that stuff that y'all said in the chat a while ago. You are robbing other people of that because you are too ashamed to ask for help. Do not take that from them. You're robbing people of the joy of loving you and showing up for you. I want you to let that sink in. It is a joy to love you. It is a privilege to show up for you. On your sheet of paper or on your note on your phone, I want you to make a list of people that you can ask for help. These are the people who love you. They've likely said yes in the past, or they've said something like, hey, if you need anything, let me know. I know that you can tell when that is genuine or not. I'm talking about the genuine people. These are your people. You don't need to have a long list, okay? Take a moment, write down a list of a few people. I have a list like this on my phone as well, because in seasons of overwhelm, in seasons of depression, my personal branding for it is called Lonely Girl Mode, where I literally forget I have a single friend. And I also watch too much Netflix and I don't want to leave my house to do anything. I forget that I have friends. And so I have a note on my phone that says, I have friends. And it has a list of people that when I'm in lonely girl mode, I know I can reach out to them. Who's on your list? You can feel free to share it in the chat if you want. It doesn't have to be a lot of people. You don't need this crazy, robust community of people to show up for you. A handful is enough. And your moms are the best. Oh, moms are the best. So many people said moms. You don't need all the people. And what if maybe you don't have a handful and you're like, oh, man, I wish I had more people on this list. You get to cultivate friendships. You get to start relationships with people out in the world. If you're out in the world and you see someone that you think has a cool vibe, or like for me, my litmus test is, do I like the way that they talk to their kids? Because I have a 6-year-old and I'm not trying to have friends that don't talk kindly and respectfully to their kids. And I've sparked up conversations with people just because, oh, that person seems cool and they're kind to their kids. Now one of them is my best friend. Like, that's pretty wild. Boss, husband, you are that friend. Need to find one like you. Yes. Yes. Daughter, kids are the best. It's understandable to be in a place where you're still learning to trust. Yeah. You are loved. And here's where you can get a little bit of a helper's high, okay? If you have someone on your list that really stands out to you, and for those of you who may not currently have someone, I want you to think of someone that has been this way for you in the past. Think about those people, and I want you to take a moment right now, or schedule a time to do this later, to just tell them how grateful you are for their friendship. Tell them what it has meant to you, that they've showed up for you in a dark season, or they've showed up for you in really tangible ways. Let them know. Even if you haven't talked in a while. Imagine if you get a text from someone you haven't heard from in years and they're like, hey, I know it's been a while, but I was just thinking about you. And the way that you showed up for me when I was going through my divorce, or after my child passed away, or when I didn't have a job, that meant everything to me. I don't know how I would have gotten through that season without you. Thank you. You would be delighted to receive that text. And the amazing thing is that it also feels great to send that text or to make that phone call. There are people who love you. You are easy to love no matter what you have been told, no matter how people have treated you. The right people find it easy to love you. They are privileged to love you. We have a little bit of time if anybody wants to share reflections, if you have questions, type them in the chat or in the Q&A rather. We have a Q&A box. Type your questions in the Q&A and we
Carrie
will.
Ann, if you don't mind, I actually saw two questions that I
Yeah,
wanted to get a chance to ask you, if that's all right.
please do.
So on the topic we were just talking about, someone asked, how do you sort of handle and talk yourself through the disappointment that comes with someone not being able to help you?
Yes, that's a really, really great question. I think we need to go into those asks knowing that not everyone is going to be able to say yes, right? So we can't assume that people are going to say yes because we will end up being disappointed, right? Like we will be disappointed if we think, oh yeah, everybody's going to say yes to me all the time. Know that there will be people who can't say yes. And then also my encouragement and invitation to you is to let yourself be bummed about it. Let yourself be like, okay, wow, that was hard. Why was that so hard for me that someone had to say no? And kind of, I mean, talk to a therapist about it, or if you have the self-awareness to be able to kind of dissect that yourself, like, oh wow, it was hard for me that someone else said no because I never say no. That's usually what it's about. Yeah.
I think that's a wonderful point. That's very, very true. I think when I think of like my own experiences, I think that's really, really true. Another really good question that came through is when we were discussing the different lists of questions of the what's and the who's you could ask yourself of who really rejuvenates you or what really rejuvenates you. Um, Someone just was wondering how do they go about starting to figure that out because
Mm.
their background had a lot of childhood trauma and so they didn't really have a chance as a child to explore and learn those things about themselves.
Ooh, whoa, that's a zinger. That is a really good, hard question. And I will answer this saying that I'm not the ultimate authority on childhood trauma and developing friendships. However, what I will say is you as an adult get to have the opportunity to reparent yourself. And if you think about yourself like those Russian nesting dolls, every iteration of us that has ever existed from birth until now is all stored up in what we are in the present moment. And we get to take the moments when the inner child is feeling wounded or rejected or dismissed and offer care to that part of ourselves through self compassion. And one of my favorite things to say to myself in hard seasons is like, hey, it makes sense that that's hard. It makes sense that you're feeling grief. It makes sense that you're feeling anger because there is not a lot of validation in childhood trauma. Otherwise, it wouldn't be happening, right? And when it comes to other people, because there was a portion of this about questions regarding making friends, right? How do we know if we're around people like that? This might just be me, but if you're laughing around someone, that's a great sign. You're laughing at life, you're laughing at mishaps, they're making you laugh with funny jokes, whatever it is, like that laughter is really medicinal. And people who laugh, people who you also, if they saw you and you were crying, they wouldn't be like making a joke about it. You know, there's a balance. We want people who are able to see us where we are and love us right there instead of trying to change us. And I know that especially adult friendships are really hard to come by. And so there are apps for this. I have not used them, but there's like Bumble BFF is one of them. I don't know if anyone on the webinar has ever done that, but I have heard of people making quite good friends on there because it's known we all are alone and we don't want to be lonely anymore. So that would be my recommendation is like use modern technology to your advantage and go out on a limb and get bold when you're out in the world. If you see someone that seems cool, say something and just see how it goes. It's a lot of just choosing to be really brave. Does that help answer the question?
I think so. I think for me, there's also a level of allowing yourself to feel joy in the finding out and recognizing that not everything is going to be your jam. You're going to try something, and the joy is in the trying something new. And maybe it connects with you, and maybe it sparks that feeling of rejuvenation and happiness, and it's what you want. And if it
Yeah.
doesn't, that's okay. There's something that is. There's
Yes,
something
because
that does do that
finding
for
out
you.
what doesn't work is just as good as finding out what does work. Because then we
It's
observe it,
like the
like,
checkoff list, right?
yeah, after a weird interaction, I'm like, ooh, that did not feel good. What didn't feel good about that to me and why? Oh, because I don't like to be around people who are complaining all the time or that are being critical of whatever it is. And okay, that tells me I don't want that. And I do want someone who can see the good and see the positive. So yeah, I'm totally with you. The fails are just as important.
And then we had a really great question. I think this is probably going to be our last question. But to sum it up, basically, they're basically running into the problem where they're having a really hard time figuring out what to say no to or taking off their plate in a culture of high expectations in a very helping work environment.
Mhm.
And they're just asking if you have any suggestions on how to help them check in with themselves to kind of see where they're at.
Mm. That's a good one. Yeah, being in a helping environment with high expectations is a really tricky thing. And there might not be anything that you can control in that environment, but this is what I will say is that there are probably things in your life that are taking up more time than they need to, which are making you feel stressed out. And I'll give a personal example here. When I became a single mom, I was drowning in housework. It's not even that my ex did a whole lot of that, but it was just like the emotionality of this whole situation. I was drowning. And I said, you know what? I am going to have a capsule kitchen. I'm not going to have 10 plates anymore. I'm going to have 4 plates. That's all I'm going to have. Everything else is going in storage. I'm having 4 forks or whatever the number is, because how can we make these things that are within your control to be simpler? Can you give away clothes so that you have less to choose from, less decision fatigue, less laundry, less to care for? Can you have less things to manage in your home? Can you really get serious about who are my primary relationships that I am investing in and be really picky about it? And I also really believe in setting alarms. So for this question, I would set an alarm. Is this a daily thing that you need to check in on? Is this a weekly thing? Do you need a calendar reminder every month? Like, what can I say no to this coming month or whatever it is? Because you're not going to remember it. Like, no offense, but you're not, and I wouldn't either. That's why we use technology to our advantage. Even having an alarm that goes off every day at the same time. How am I doing and what do I need? That's what it's titled. How am I doing and what do I need? That would be my recommendation. Use technology and just simplify, simplify, simplify. Everything that's in your control, make it as simple as possible.
Thank you so
Friends,
much. I think that's a great answer. I really appreciate that, by the way. I love that idea of having a reminder to remind yourself to check in with yourself. I think that's helpful for everyone because we really don't prioritize ourselves. It's not something that we necessarily do instinctually anymore. And we do have to be very intentional about it. But I think the fact that you were able to recognize that today is National Self Care Day and you're here and participating is a massive step in the right direction. So thank you so much, everyone.
thank you all for being here. Go be kind to yourselves.